Hello and welcome back to Mercer County Park Disc Golf Course for the back 10 of the first round at Krampus 4. We are here trying to avoid Krampus, staying out of his grips, and avoid all of the meddling that he has done here at this Krampus 20-hole layout. I'm Dave Oster, here to be your guide through this treacherous final 10 holes, starting off on hole 11. Par 3, 273 feet. Krampus has put a mandatory left on a very close tree to the basket. These players are going to have to go around it to the left side and try to push far enough to the right. Bruno up first. Going to go with the forehand. Going with a flex forehand and turning it over just a bit too much. Catching that tree, never has enough time to get all the way back. If you've ever been to Mercer, I'm sure you've probably run into Zachary Tesone, local pro, going with the big high forehand, trying to get up and over the tree, doesn't make it past the Mando, and Krampus has its first victim of this second half of the first round. So Zach will be proceeding to a drop zone. Bo Lee also turning it over a bit too much. This Mando looks like it shouldn't be too much of an issue, but getting into these players' heads really just need to throw a straight forehand with a finish. But we see how much difficulty it looks like all four of these players are having. Krampus getting two of them directly with Miss Mandos and two turned over forehands. So usually one of the easiest holes on the course, hole 11, just a short basket. But all four of these players are definitely not getting their birdies. Ken and Zach, just short little pitch-ups around the tree. And I guess technically that was still for a birdie, but Joey being pretty far away, smart to just get around the Mando and lay up. Zach, our current leader, giving a stroke back to the field. And Bo, his closest competitor, stays within one. So Ken and Joey will tap in. As the players go, and just take a second peek to make sure that Zach did miss the Mando, but he did indeed. So we'll move over to hole 12, par 4, 580 feet, playing to the short basket from the long tee. There is an out-of-bounds wood line all the way along the right side. And these players are either going to go straight at it with a forehand, or it looks like Joey is going up and over the left side. And he spikes it down, maybe within circle 2. Pretty good play. Now he's going to have a putt looking at it towards the out of bounds, right behind the basket, and it is pretty close to the basket, as we'll see as we get up there. Bo going with a similar line, but doesn't quite get enough stability to come back. He's going to be pretty far out in the field. These players looking like they want nothing to do with that OB line, so they're just going way out to the left. It is a par 4, so they have the ability to still get up and down for their birdies. Should actually be pretty easy to do so as long as they don't overshoot it coming into the green. And yeah, 4 for 4 going up and around the outside. Seems like just a bit of the easier play. And now we'll be heading into the green with OB within the circle. So players having to be very careful if they decide to run it or smartly laying it up for the birdie like Ken. And Zach as well. Now Joey's a little bit shorter. He has a bit of the angle for Hyzer to give it that eagle bit. Oh, and he hits it off the rim, and thankfully sitting short enough to not go out of bounds. The other three players who laid up will also tap in their birdies, and we will have our first star frame, so no instances of Krampus on this hole. As we head over to our first bonus hole of this 20-hole layout, hole A, playing from 13's long tee pad to 12's long basket. It's about 190 feet, but as you can see, there's an OB line that you have to get across, which shouldn't be an issue unless you get caught up in this tree. And Joey going with the tomahawk and spiking it down right next to the basket. So that will work. Forehand will also work, but they're coming back towards that out of bounds line. But will be no issue if you put it right under the basket like Bo. Great shot. Zach trying to replicate that with another forehand. Nice checkup. Ken trying to match the group, getting it nice and close. This needs to stick, and does so very nice. All right. So it looks like we are potentially looking at another star frame, 2 in a row. So perhaps Krampus forgot to meddle with this hole. Maybe he wanted to give the players a break, put them in a nice lull for holes to come, who knows. But this does seem like a soft part of the course. Hole 13, par 3, 310 feet. We're looking at it from the long tee, but we're actually playing from the short tee, so it's the left side of this open field. And the OB on this line is pretty close behind as well. Oh, as we see Joey flirting with it. Those orange flags indicating the out of bounds within the circle again. Bo with a nice little scoot forehand. Should be pretty easy for him. And again, Zach trying to replicate that forehand. Two kind of similar shaped holes. This one is probably over 100 feet further. Maybe about 100 feet further. Oh, and Ken pulls it a little bit. Does it have the stability? Oh, and it checks up. So Ken furthest out. And you can see that OB line actually goes down that path, which will give a little teaser, is an double-sided out-of-bounds line for one of the holes for the safari layout. That entire path between this hole and the next is the fairway, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Ooh, as Joey spits out left side, the players who avoid Krampus on this first 20 holes get the opportunity to defeat him on the Safari 9 hole coming up after this. So we will see who is able to do it here and then move on. Just a touch of Krampus for Joey. Just barely spitting out left side. Other than that, would have been a third star frame in a row. Of course, Krampus did not want that. As we go over to hole 14, par 3, 250 feet, playing to the short pin. The woods are playing out of bounds if you go long of the basket. So players maybe a little hesitant to go full power as we see Bo come up a little bit short, but his circle's edge maybe. Zach looks like he's looking wide. Kind of straight. Yep, calling for it to go left. And does curl up at the end to give him a 18 to 20 footer. And similar line, but not quite as much distance. Kind of fades over to in those trees, so it'll be maybe a little bit of an obstacle, but it won't be too bad. Joey going with a forehand turnover. And if he didn't get caught up with those trees, that should work. We'll have a look at it for sure. Ken almost getting the birdie from 70 or 80 feet. Bo with a little bit better of an opportunity and just a bit high. Similar distance for Joey. And just a bit too, look like nose down. We're getting towards these open fields where there might be a little bit more wind coming into play. And Zach with the only one left for birdie opportunity and takes advantage. So he will extend his lead to 2 over Bo. And the rest of these guys will be tapping in their pars. As we head over to hole 15. Par 4, 470 feet, playing from the long tee pad. The way the drone is flying will be more so the right side where you could play the normal right line, but you're pretty much forced to go left as there is a late left mando, which we'll see once we get likely to their second shots. Being a par 4, these players are going to have to go left at this first split we see right at the center of the screen to really set themselves up to go through the mando on the second shot. Distance-wise, you could potentially get through on your first shot. As you see, Zach gets a great kick back out of the woods and lands right in front of the drop zone that is at the mando line. So you don't need a lot of distance. You really just want to set yourself up for the second shot. Bo got a bit of a bad kicked over to the kind of right side of the fairway, which will give him a strange angle for his second shot. Kenny going with a straight shot, maybe looking for a bit more hyzer or finish. So he'll have kind of a pinched off angle trying to get through that mando. Joey is lining up forehand turnover. Oh, had the distance but missed the mando, but got almost all the way into the circle. Unfortunately, he'll have to go back to the drop zone, getting bit by Krampus again. Bo missing the mando as well on his second shot, coming up short of it, trying to just pitch around it. So he'll be moving backwards to that drop zone that we see right in front of Zach as he pulls one a bit left. He's probably almost pin high, but that does not look fun there. Ken looking like he lined up a big turnover. Oh, and gets caught up high and didn't make much progress. He's going to be in the left side rough again. So now Bo and Joey will be from the drop zone. Bo with one stroke more than Joey, but able to give himself a putt to save, I believe, the bogey from there. And Joey will be able to try to save the par. So now Ken and Zach will be going from the left side rough, just trying to get up and down. Nice little thumber. Getting Ken and a great roll, so that'll be enough to save his par. Zach is pretty deep in there. We'll have to see what he's looking at. And just able to get out. And yeah, 15 feet from the pin. So Bo for bogey. Just a bit too far left. So Krampus certainly grabbing Bo on this one. Zach able to get the par after a couple not perfect shots. Going left side rough on both of them, having to pitch out, getting his par. Joey able to save the par from the drop zone. And I believe this will be the double. Yep, double for Bo. Giving the lead to Zach by 4 strokes now. But a lot of challenges left to come as we go to hole 16, par 3, 300 feet. There's an OB line all along the right side, with this hole being kind of bending left to right is the direction you want your disc to go. So if you do it too much, obviously you'll end up in that OB line. Zach going real high and wide and almost running the basket. Came within a few feet of hitting some chains. Zach is not afraid of Krampus today, it seems. Kind of a little low. Oh, that's running and right out of bounds. Got just the worst cut roll angle. Went straight right. Kind of landed pretty far left side of the fairway and all the way right side. And Joey getting caught in a tree, and didn't mention it because it usually doesn't happen, but Krampus has enacted the 2-meter rule for this tournament. Likely we've never even covered a tournament where it was in effect, but this one it was, and Joey was the unfortunate victim of that. Kind of a strange place for it to even stick. Just dead stopped, wasn't even kind of falling out of the tree. But luckily close enough that he might be able to save his par. Nah, not quite. Just trying to get it down now. Bo with a good drive. And rewarded with a birdie there. Kind of overlooked it as we were talking about the 2-meter rule, but he wound up in probably a better spot than even Zach is. Although Zach did give it a run, and he's still able to cash in that birdie. So Ken, after going OB, looking to save his par here, and nails the putt. If I haven't mentioned it yet, the top 40 to 50% of each division qualify for the final 9. So battling Krampus is what you're trying to do just to get to that final 9. Having to be top 40 to 50% of the field. That's the goal here. Scores will continue. They don't reset in the final 9. So Zach and Bo pretty close to being able to just coast through. Obviously, got to finish these last 2 holes, but Kenny and Joe and other players in the field are battling to get above that cut line. Right now, we're looking at 17, par 3, 290 feet. There is an OB line just beyond the basket. All these guys going with the forehand turnover or flex line. Joey going for it. Oh, and he goes over that out of bounds line. So he will be putting fairly close to the basket, but will be for a par. Kenny trying to do the turnover putt. Not quite able to keep it moving left to right, but he'll have a putt to save his par. This one for birdie for Zach. And maybe smartly trying to just give it a light bid. No need to be giving up strokes. They do still count for the total tournament, so Trying to just maintain his lead going into that final 9. And great putt by Ken. Getting that par, knowing that he's tied with Joe. Ooh, a little low left side for Bo. Check in at the end of the round to see how the rest of the field is doing. Looking for those top 4 spots to make it in to the final. To get the opportunity to defeat Krampus. Again, remember there are 20 holes. We had 10 on the front 9, 10 on the back 9, so there's actually 2 more holes still. Hole 18, par 3, 320 feet. These are 2 out-of-bounds ponds. Water hazards, whatever you want to call them. If you land in them, it is a penalty stroke. Play from wherever you went out of bounds, technically. So, trying to land short or long or left or right. And Zach does it pretty much perfectly, landing right in the middle. There's also OB over the fence to the right. And if you wind up short, there's technically hazard flags, but that shouldn't be an issue for these guys. Bo with a pretty good shot too, landing just off center. Him and Zach will both have pretty good looks at it. Oh, Ken pulls it far right. That needs to come. Oh, and it hits the telephone pole and kicks all the way back to the very dead middle. The telephone pole that we're looking at right over Joey's shoulder is, I believe, the one Kenny hit. So that was, gotta say, quite a bad shot by Kenny. But very lucky to get back in bounds. And Joey going a big high shot. Going into a bit of a headwind. Wasn't able to get the distance, but kept it in the fairway. So Ken, after a very fortunate kick back into the fairway, does take advantage, and he should be able to save his par. And Joey, maybe looking at scores, is trying to make it with a tomahawk. Trying to throw in a highlight for our channel. We appreciate it. But scores are still pretty close. And almost goes long on the comebacker into the OB pool. Oh, just a little bit low for Bo. Zach to get one more stroke. Oh, and there's that headwind. Pulls it up and just short of that wood line. Trying to make the comebacker and does save the par. As these guys tap in, we are going to be heading over to the final hole of this 20-hole layout. We had 2 additional holes, hole A, and we'll be heading over to hole B, the 20th hole of this layout. Joey with the bag tap in. And we're going to take a little bit of a walk over towards the parking lot, where we'll be teeing from the main road as you're walking in, navigating through few large pine trees with a temporary basket posted up on top of a mound. So rollaways, certainly a possibility, and just getting close to the basket will be a challenge. Only 180 feet, so shouldn't be too much of an issue. Forehand line definitely makes sense, but tough to get that skip up the hill to get too close. I think this really is going to be more of a putting challenge. As you can see, great line by Bo, but you get that straight skip as you hit the slope. That's sloping down to the left, making it difficult to get all the way up. Kenny trying to combat that by giving it more angle. Hits a little bit low, but winds up getting maybe within circle 2. Give himself a look, and Joe decided to just take a different route altogether. Up and over right side. And lands pretty close to the basket. But on that hillside and rolls to outside circle 2, maybe circle 2's edge. Tough to get it that high, winds up just putting it under the basket. Krampus was a big challenge for Joey today. He fought back there in the middle. These last couple holes kind of got him back out. We'll see, like I said, where the rest of the field winds up. He will be 4th on this card. Nice putt by Zach. Squarely in the lead. And Kenny with a birdie gives himself a good chance of making it on to the finals. Bo's going to be probably pretty squarely in, especially with that par. Anything under par with this layout, battling the field, battling the weather, battling Krampus, is a pretty good score. Shot of the round, though, before we move on, see who is moving on, is this beautiful shot, putting it almost leaning on the pin by Bo. Who we see is in the finals along with Zach, Timur Savin, Kenneth Wilson, Kim A. Cass. Unfortunately, Joey, the only one eliminated, but we have a tie for 4th, so we're going to have a 5-player card heading to the finals to battle Krampus in the final 9 Safari layout at Mercer. You've probably never seen it, so make sure you click on that 9-hole Safari layout, thumb bottom left, right there, to see how this conclusion with the Battle of Krampus finishes.